In the early 1970s, the Nixon administration created the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. The federal government looked to the states to implement solutions, following what was called the decriminalization of public intoxication. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health made funds available for detoxification centers statewide to meet the new need for alcohol treatment. A group on Cape Cod responded.
It really was a group of people on Cape Cod, mostly AA people, who had a small thing they called the Cape Cod Committee on Alcoholism. And so when this Cape Cod Committee group heard about that, they petitioned to the state and said, we need one of those on Cape Cod.
In September 1972, CAIRU, the Cape Cod Alcoholic Intervention and Rehabilitation Unit, what was to become Gosnold, was opened at the Barnstable County Hospital in Pocasset, and Paul Rothfeld became the first director of the center.
No one knew anything about how to treat alcoholism. We had no medical director up until 3 weeks before the place opened. You know, there was no field prior to that. There was no treatment field. There were a few private rehabs that existed where people would go to dry out, you know, usually in the mountains somewhere. But there wasn't a system of care anywhere in the country.
Ray Tomasi was there from the start, first as a counselor, then quickly becoming Paul Rothfeld's right-hand man.
All the counselors had, you know, familiarity or association with AA, so they knew 12 steps, that's all they knew. The nurses knew nothing. The doctors knew very little. And we wung it, as we say.
I think it was all a learning curve. I can remember once going to Barnstable, actually Hyannis, to pick up a mail, and I never should have gone for that ride to take him back to Falmouth. But it was kind of like you shot from the hip.
During the first few months, the new detox center admitted about 80 patients, but they realized they were getting a lot of repeat business.
So they would come in the evening, and a day or two later they would leave, and then 2 days later they'd be back. So there were a lot of multiple admissions, and we recognized pretty early that some people needed, it just wasn't going to be enough. And so we had a third floor on this building that was vacant. So we had another 18 or 20 beds there, and we named that Penthouse 1.
After you stayed in the detox and got over your meds, we had a penthouse program upstairs. It was right above on the same building on the upper floor. And that was a good 6-week program.
You know, there were 4 of us taking care of 20 or so patients in the detox. And then, you know, almost overnight, we had another 20 that we were taking care of because there was no money to fund that program. There was no staff. There was nothing.
Rapid and sometimes painful growth continued. In 1974, Penthouse 2 was opened.
Penthouse 1 was the step program. Penthouse 2 was the halfway house, which you had to work at. I mean, it wasn't a slum. Everybody got a job at Seacrest. And you had to work, and you had to attend meetings, and you could stay there for a while.
The next thing, you have these guys that, you know, were only patients that are now residents, and they're getting sober. They're getting reunited with their families. I mean, the growth is starting to happen. When I think of my fondest memory of Penthouse 2, believe it or not, there was a rescue of this Doberman pinscher. I think his name was King. And they'd walk up and down Main Street. And it was kind of like Dobermans are so majestic and so, and you could see, you know, these guys, their chests were kind of puffed out and they were walking higher, and it was, you know, it was very rewarding.
And then in '74, federal monies were made available for services specifically for women. And it was a great opportunity for us. We were awarded a federal grant to begin developing a program specifically for women alcohol-dependent patients. And that essentially was the Emerson House.
The inpatient program and an outpatient program offered a unique and substantial array of services.
We had significant resources in this community within 3 years of getting our first dollar.
By 1978, the program's 6th anniversary, more than 22,000 patients had been admitted for treatment. And in 1979, what ultimately became an all-male residential treatment program, the Miller House, was established as the first treatment program in the country devoted entirely to the care of deaf substance abusers. It was funded by a 3-year, $1 million government grant, thanks to the tenacity of Paul Rothfeld.
We had a patient who came to us, it was in the old detox in Pecasset, and he was an engineering student at NYU, but he was deaf, Stephen Miller.
With Steve, I tried for a long time. I would take him to AA meetings, and he would try to understand, and he couldn't. And over the 2 years that I worked with Steve, which ultimately ended in his committing suicide, I began to realize that deaf people needed a special kind of program where the people in the program were versed in sign language, knew how to communicate with deaf people, and deaf people could be with each other to share their problems and their successes as they recovered from alcoholism.
Paul Rothfeld, in my opinion, he was a visionary. He always, he would see it before it was built, and then he would build it. He had a tremendous, compassionate heart.
The 80s brought an increase in drug abuse, from marijuana to cocaine to LSD, which meant even more demand for addiction treatment. The organization responded by expanding its program with a new treatment center on the grounds of Falmouth Hospital. It offered the first 14-day rehab program in the Northeast in response to a need to attract insurance funding and support local businesses through employee assistance programs.
We have a good EAP program here on the Cape, so when we have had issues with employees or family members of our employees, certainly we've known that the Gosnold resource is there.
It gives us the opportunity to offer employees a tool or a set of tools to use when things come up in life that they need some help handling.
One of the biggest things is they've never turned us down. They've always taken the person and have helped them.
When the new Falmouth facility opened in 1982, the organization decided it was time for a new name.
There was one meeting where Joe Dunn said, "What about Gosnold?" And then I found out that Gosnold was, Bartholomew Gosnold, and there was a certain association of sort of discovery and exploration, and that was the name. So it was really about building up the Gosnold Treatment Center program, improving that, developing the staff, and cultivating and sort of trying to create the linkages between the halfway houses and the detox and the rehab. So it was fairly robust at that time.
During this time, to better serve its clients, the Miller House became an all-male residential treatment program and moved to its current location on Woods Hole Road. The Emerson House moved to its current home on Route 28A, a stately mansion and a former inn with a rich history. All the changes made the whole organization stronger, and national recognition and awards raised awareness that Gosnold was not only a local resource, but a national leader in addiction treatment. In 1992, Paul Rothfeld retired, and Ray Tomasi took over the helm.
We didn't have much of a transition. Paul wasn't much for transition. Sort of like, I'm going next week, you got it. I'm going like, well, what about? He said, you'll figure it out. It's like, you're in this office today, now you're in this office.
During Tomasi's first years of leadership, 2 significant enhancements to Gosnold's capabilities were achieved.
In that first year, it looked to me like the general environment of healthcare was that mental health and addiction were starting to come closer together. And that there was, certainly there were more patients presenting who had both addiction and a co-occurring disorder. And so I thought that this would be the time for us to begin to develop greater capacity in the area of mental health treatment.
To better serve these patients, Gosnold merged with the Thorne Clinic in 1996. The second enhancement was at Emerson House. It became one of 31 programs selected nationwide for the development of residential treatment for pregnant women and women with children, a program that continues to flourish and serve young women in need today.
I'm the dad of a recipient of services. My daughter came twice to detox, went once, was sober for about 4 months, went back out. She is an opiate addict and got off the opiates and decided she could drink.
At the time of her second detox, Bill's daughter was also pregnant. Fortunately, Emerson House was there.
She had our granddaughter while she was a patient there. She grew in a recovery that was supportive and caring and loving. My daughter just graduated with high honors from 4 C's and got a full scholarship to Bridgewater. I mean, just that's Gosnold. That's the Gosnold story right there.
That story has played over and over for other young women. And the success of the program was featured in 1995 on ABC's Nightline.
Tonight, Safe Haven, the women of Emerson House.
My office is in the building where the babies live, and it's just a sound that I associate with recovery and with treatment. And especially for the women who come in pregnant and then have their babies here, this is their family. And our babies actually probably have the best self-esteem of anybody on the planet because they've got, 36 other mothers who just adore them.
Emerson House also has a strong volunteer network of women who are committed to helping other women regain their lives.
Basically, our mission has been to raise awareness about the programs of Emerson, but also to raise the much-needed money to refurbish this beautiful building that we are so lucky to have in our village.
Now, the Miller House has a different kind of volunteer corps. I mean, there are alumni guys who come back to volunteer. And they volunteer, they help out, and doing some of the yard work there. We have the Miller House does these little recreational things, softball games and stuff where alumni come back and play.
I tell the guys when they graduate the Miller House, it's like the Marines. You're always a Miller House guy. No matter what you do, if you relapse, you're a Miller House guy. Give us a call, let us help you again. If you're doing well, give us a call, let us share in your celebration. But you're a Miller House guy. You're stuck with us.
Over the years, volunteers from the community and from the Gosnold staff have also helped raise money to support the efforts of the organization. From teas, to art exhibits, to golf tournaments and road races, every dollar raised brings hope to Gosnold's patients. In 2011, a new annual event in memory of David Lewis, a former patient, kicked off, and the 2012 event was held in early September. Lewis died of a heart attack at 39. His time at Gosnold gave him more than 7 years of sobriety. By supporting Gosnold, the Lewis family hopes to help others achieve a lasting recovery.
It's for Gosnold, but also it's a testimonial to my son. So it looks like it's going to go on for a long time, and it looks like it's going to keep getting bigger because the response has been amazing. All the proceeds go to Gosnold.
And every penny counts. Fundraisers, grants, government funding, insurance. It's a juggle and a challenge to do what's right for patients.
My staff will say to me, what are you doing? And I'll say, these are the moments when Gosnold becomes a faith-based organization. Last year was around $1.1 million in underfunded or unfunded care that we provided, whether it's outpatient, inpatient. It's the right thing to do.
Today, an epidemic in prescription opiates, such as OxyContin, has changed the profile of the typical Gosnold patient.
Last year, it's like 47%. 47% who are identifying an opiate as their primary drug of dependency. And of that 47, probably 3/4 of them are prescription medications, not heroin. Once the train leaves that station, it's very, very hard to stop it. And it's agonizing for families, really. And it's frightening. It's frightening.
In response to the growing community crisis, the Gosnold Drug Court Treatment Program was established to bring addiction treatment to individuals in the court system.
The drug court has actually been very helpful to me as sheriff because it kind of, instead of someone coming to jail, they get an opportunity to try to straighten themselves out before they get to that point.
Sometimes it's the doorway through which they come, and then once they get here, it's their recovery. A lot of those women would be incarcerated otherwise and wouldn't have the opportunity for treatment.
You can't do this kind of treatment in a silo. It really is incorporating all segments of the community in the treatment. That's what makes it successful. So, if you go into a court, the court is aware of Gosnold and relies on it. The police are aware, the community at large. Gosnold is well known. Its reputation is exemplary because it works and because of the people who make it work.
To meet growing demand for more intensive inpatient treatment, Gosnold at Katomet opened in 2004.
We really responded to what patients and families were saying, we need something more. Isn't there something more you can do? So we created the entire site at Katomet to be a 3 to 5 week rehab, and that's what it is today.
We're now a 40-bed facility, and we're pretty close in the 90% to 100% occupancy most of the time, which is a wonderful thing. It's become a very, very successful program, and it was Ray's brainchild.
In 2008, Gosnold launched a program focused on families affected by addiction, providing education, support, interventions, and recovery coaching.
There's a place for them to go and talk about the husband and the wife, mother, the father, the siblings. It's a family disease, and people have to be aware of that. And this is a family treatment program.
Today, in its 40th year, Gosnold continues to grow and find new and innovative ways to treat patients and remain financially viable in the face of a difficult economy. In addition to its inpatient and family counseling programs, Gosnold reaches out through 7 outpatient clinics.
You call here and it's always the same answer. We'll take care of it. The tagline for Gosnold ought to be, we'll take care of it.
It's amazing to watch how Gosnold has changed to accommodate the changing challenges in our community. It's just remarkable, a remarkable organization.
What's next for this remarkable organization? A new, innovative, and award-winning program working with hospitals and primary care physicians is already underway and gaining national attention.
We've seen, I think, around 240 patients in the hospital. We've been very successful in reducing complications and also reducing lengths of stay. People were staying there 10, 12, 14, 15 days because they'd go into DTs. So we helped them with some of the screening questions. So it's changed things at the hospital. And about half of the people we've seen have accepted a referral to come to a Gosnold program.
Modern technology and new medications also hold promise as new weapons in the arsenal of those fighting this disease.
We're involved in a research project with the University of Wisconsin to test the efficacy of smartphone technology in maintaining connections with patients. So we have about 40 patients now in our test cohort currently, and we're enrolling more, who have apps on their phones.
Whatever the future holds, celebrating the 40th anniversary at Gosnold is all about celebrating the staff, volunteers, and supporters who work tirelessly to battle this disease one patient at a time, one day at a time. Every success makes it all worthwhile.
One comment I will never forget as long as I live was a young girl who said to me, I went home and visited my mother, and I know she knows I'm getting well. She didn't hide her purse this time.
One of the challenges in this field is how do we get people that are in recovery to talk about it?
You know, I can easily talk about Gosnold all day long because my kids have recovered with me because of Gosnold. You know, that's the greatest gift of this recovery, you know, that I've been able to watch my children recover. I've had the honor and privilege to travel all over this country this year, speaking in front of about 150,000 kids, telling my story in hopes of preventing them going down the same path. My whole life I grew up aspiring to be Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas. And today I aspire to be Ray Tomasi. I aspire to be the guys who reconnect the sick and suffering to their families.
For all you good folks who are staff, patients, people who have benefited from the existence of Gosnold, we can all say happy 40th anniversary for Gosnold. Thank you for always answering the phone and for always saying we'll take care of it.
There are a lot of birthdays, and I'm not overstating this, a lot of birthdays are being celebrated now because Gosnold has existed and literally been a lifeline for many people. So it's nice that out in the community we can say happy birthday to so many people because of Gosnold, and now it's time for the community to say happy birthday to Gosnold.